What's going on, folks? This is the Friday Mess Around, and we were thinking about, do we even do this show? There's going to be no news. It's so slow, and boom! We have Dez going into execution. We have Kaepernick in Seattle, and something I've talked about a bunch, and we're going to get into. I'm going to try and chop up my comments so I don't take all of it, and we have the perfect panel here to talk about that stuff. We have Fontez Burfict and Mark Sanchez, of all people, getting suspended. NFL time is going crazy. People think that all the experts have their lists out, which are never correct. But it's part of our job this time of the year to review those things and to kind of look at those things. So I'm actually lucky enough that we have kind of the new knucklehead crew, I guess you call it. Like the guys that seem to be on basically all of our shows, as we are a brand new birth of the podcast network. We have Mark Hirsch feeling a little bit better to be on this. Coaches Christopher and Shane, and Baltimore Blaine. I'm going to try and call Baltimore Baltimore, because if not, I'm going to get Shane, Blaine and Blaine mixed up all over again. So let's start off right away with what's on everybody's YouTube, what's on everybody's news channel right now. And we're going to go, we'll make it simple. We're going to go the two coaches, starting with Christopher, then Shane, and we'll go with the old school cats, Baltimore Blaine and Mark Hirsch at the end. So, Coach Christopher, I was kind of embarrassed for that guy. Now, I'm going to give my opinion on where I think his mind's at, but that interview that Dez just gave, kind of sad, man. You kind of feel bad for the guy, and you also I have that little thing in me where I want him and Chad Johnson to lose every single fumble they could ever lose and get hit really hard coming right over the middle, just smack them once in a while. But looking at him, that's the competitor in me. But watching that interview, you could tell, that's his home, that's the team he rooted for as a kid. You could tell, he was hurt. He was hurt. So I'll go to you. Thanks for joining us again, Coach Christopher. Tell us about what you think about Dez, and then we'll get to what it means for the team after this.
First and foremost, thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure to be on with you guys, with Baltimore, with Mark, and with the coach Shane, and you, Chris. Again, we're grateful to have us on now. It was evident that you can feel his emotion. You can see his emotion. Again, I don't know how many kids at some point in their life didn't root for the Cowboys until they started to have their own team or something like that. And not very many, but everybody's been at some point a Cowboy fan. And it's obvious that Dez was, and he was hurt by it. And this is the unfortunate aspect of the business side of being an NFL player, being an athlete. What does the NFL stand for? Not for long. So you can't put your emotions into one team because it's a business decision. They'll make the decision to trade for you, trade you out, and if they don't like you, they can cut you and get rid of you. So, but emotionally, it's obvious that he tugs there. Dez is one heck of an athlete, one heck of a player. He put his heart into every down that he played. And so it's unfortunate to see him and Dallas have to part. But I will say this about Jerry Jones. He had that conversation with him himself. And so we respect that in that nature, but I don't think Dez will have a problem finding another team.
No, you know what? I totally agree with you. Dez is going to be out there and he's going to get himself locked, barreled, and he's ready to go. The biggest thing, though, I'm going to say is that he kind of saw last year, I believe, the writing on the wall with how Coach Garrett there was incrementing some of the receiving and the offense and everything like that. So I just think that this was coming. That's a huge paycheck that he was going to be getting, and et cetera, like that. So, like I said, they needed to do it. I believe Dez really does want to be known as a Cowboy, but now he's got to look and say, what's my future going to hold? And he's going to go to where he's got, I believe, the best chance of getting himself not back into the playoffs and possibly going further. And you never know. He actually might wind up over there in that Green Bay Packer uniform. I don't know. Anything's possible, but I'll let Mr. Hirsch and the rest of you guys carry on with that one. Mr. Hirsch.
So actually, real quick, I want to jump in. I want to kind of change this.
Come on, Chris.
I want to change this up real quick because I know Mr. Hirsch and Baltimore Blaine, while they're super knowledgeable, they're more about like kind of like the feeling, like the fan side of the game. And I don't know if you guys saw this, and I do want to contradict a little bit. Like they didn't even give him the option of taking a pay cut. He walked in there with the
Well, of course not. They're not. They didn't want to give him that option. They had it writing on the wall when last year came. This was it, and the money and everything like that. Jerry Jones and those guys know what they want to draft. They were going out and they're going to get themselves some younger guys and the big paycheck that he has. That's what it's coming down to.
Yeah, exactly. So let's go Blaine and Shade. Take what I'm sorry, Blaine and Mr. Hirsch. We'll go to you first, Mr. Baltimore. I mean, that's got to be a kick in the old huevos, right? Like that's kind of tough, and especially for a guy who's kind of exhibited some mental issues as far as anger and dealing with stress like that, abandonment, all that. I'm not a psychologist, but someone who's emotionally fragile, just basically getting snubbed. I mean,
he's hurt. He's hurt right now. He's hurt right now, and it's because he's dead. This is the only NFL franchise he's known. He's dedicated himself to this team. He's done what they wanted him to do. I'm not sure he would have been as clean in other organizations. I didn't think he would be as clean as he has been in this organization. But you're looking at Father Time. He's 29 years old. He'll be 30 in November. Dallas has already moved on. They've signed new receivers. They've got receivers ready to go, younger than he is, with better upside. He's not the same elite receiver he used to be. So he's emotional right now. He wants to stay in the East and see Dallas twice a year. He's saying right now on emotions because he's hurt. Whether or not that happens, I can see maybe Washington. They need receivers, but is he ready? Is he that angry and hurt that he would play for Washington? Or do they want him in that locker room? We'll see. As far as outside, Mr. Hirsch, you want to talk about maybe the Packers?
Well, the Packers have got salary cap problems, so that's an issue right there that I think is going to prevent him from coming there. And, there's been talk that he's going to go to the Ravens as well to try to put a little spark into Joe Flacco. So
I can tell you. I'm sorry. I can tell you straight up that's not happening.
I don't see him going to the Packers, and I just want to correct Coach Christopher. Not everybody has at some point in their life been a Cowboys fan.
Yeah,
and I can.
Look, bang, bang.
I could attest to that. I mean, not only did they knock my Packers out of the playoffs about 4 years in a row in the mid-'90s, but I bristle every time they call them America's team because they're not. They're Jerry Jones's team. The only team that is owned by the community is the Green Bay Packers. And so that bugs me, and I'm not a Cowboys fan. And that's all I have to say about that.
I respect that. Wait a minute. Hold on, Chris. Okay, hold on. I try not to interrupt, and I never will. Mr. Hirsch, I respect that, and I apologize for assuming that you could take your emotions out of this.
Yeah, good luck with that one.
And look at it from a realistic standpoint. We say that because the Cowboys were on every week, every holiday. You watch the Cowboys, and when you first, anybody that really got into football for the first time in their life, the Cowboys made you like football, whether or not they made you like the Cowboys. For a long time, the Cowboys are what kept the NFL relevant, and I'm a Rams fan telling you that. So, but that was the reason why I made that assumption. But
I remember,
and that's coming from the soul of an ex-football player.
I remember sitting in my living room watching the Ice Bowl. which was a fantastic game. But as I remember it, it's usually on Thanksgiving. It's always been Detroit and Green Bay.
Yeah.
So
it's always Detroit and Dallas. They're the two teams that always play on.
Always play on.
Every single year. It's Detroit plays somebody in Dallas. Detroit plays Green Bay like 50% of the time.
Well, it's Detroit and Green Bay a lot of the time. So anyway, I listen. I'm an attorney, and I listen to words. And when somebody says everybody at one time or another has been a Cowboys fan, well, I guess there's one person that wasn't, and that would be me.
I want to come on side of Mr. Hirsch and say that that Mr. Hirsch grew up a Green Bay Packers fan. I grew up with the Colts. I was never a Dallas Cowboy fan. I'm sorry. Although I get what you're saying, Coach Christopher, because a lot of my relatives and cousins in general were Cowboys fans, but they were in South Carolina. So, they didn't have a team that in that region at the time, not an NFL team.
All right. So real quick, I'm gonna give my 2 cents on the Cowboys, and I'm gonna set up a new topic for Dez. I'm gonna say Cowboy fans that don't live in Texas are like Yankee fans that don't live in New York. Like you just want like the biggest. It's the worst people in sports. I just can't stand Yankee fans that live in Nebraska. Like, what do you, just because they win a lot? Like, what? Just, you have no soul. You have no soul. Cowboy fans, unless you're like eating brisket in Texas, you have no soul. That's all I'm saying. Just no soul. Unless you have a cool story. Like, my dad actually tried to buy me a Danny White jersey when I was 4 years old. Like, one of those little, like, kids, like, with the foam helmets. And I ripped the thing off, and I tried to write an 80 for Steve Largent in the middle of high-end Niner time when they're winning and the Cowboys are winning. I still wanted to be Steve Largent. I wore it to the damn game. Gosh darn it, that's loyalty. All right, that's my homer side for this. So we're looking at Dez Bryant, and where could he go? So I think you guys all find this kind of funny. Patrick Judas, I don't know who that is, but he tweeted out, Baltimore is trying to figure out a way to retroactively fail Michael Crabtree's physical.
Yeah, that's cute. Very cute, Chris.
Yeah.
Very cute.
Yeah. But
I'm going to get you back later.
I think you guys could still, I didn't write it. I think you guys could still use it though. But I'm just going to give you the list of teams that are considered to be in the front running. And I'm going to let you guys pass it around and kind of give your opinion on where you think it'll go. As Mr. Hirsch mentioned, New York, Green Bay are out of it only due to the fact of salary cap. Not that they wouldn't love to have him. I don't think Green Bay really needs him. I don't think he is as valuable as he thinks he is, which I think is going to be a problem that's going to leave him in free agency for a while. So let me get to those teams, and then we'll go to Coach Christopher, Coach Shane, Blaine, and Mark very quickly. Same order again. Washington, as we brought up, he came out of the building saying, I'm going to see you guys twice, very Richard Sherman style. I don't know if he actually – I doubt that he thought about that or had that set up. I think that the pain you see is because he was ready to go in there, as he mentioned in his interview, with the intention of taking a pay cut and was told that his services are not needed for any price, which has got to be tough. So Washington, the Colts – I don't think he would go there, but they have plenty of cap room and they can go. The Ravens, Wallace, they got John Brown, Crabtree. I think he would be, John Brown comes in, Crabtree, Wallace gone. I think that would make a lot of sense. The Giants. Now, the Giants, something to bring up if you would like to in your conversation as we pass this around. If they do trade Beckham, would grabbing a free agent be a coup for the Giants? If you get a free agent Dez, a couple of first-round picks, and get that headache out of your building. Something about Carolina. Sean Payton wrote something about Dez Bryant. Something that's, very sweet and looks like he's trying to kind of court Dez a little bit, but I don't know how they would fit it in either. But, Drew throwing it to Des. And then actually Seattle is on another site too, but I don't think they have the temperament or the room. And we're going to get into that in just a second. So, Coach Christopher, where do you think he's going to go? What do you think? And give me a why, and then maybe if you feel like it, talk about that possibility of Odell.
And before I say anything, we wanted to just acknowledge Mark, and I know Mark had to go. We wanted to send him a shout out and say to him we appreciate him chiming in, taking away for his time to speak and give us his opinion. Hopefully he'll be able to come back but we'll miss him for the rest of the show. But just wanted to say
thanks guys. I'll be back with you some other day.
And I want to apologize.
We can carry over to Tuesday.
Yeah, we're gonna take that conversation over to Tuesday, and I want to apologize to everyone for having a bad time management skills. But Mr. Hirsch is feeling bad, but he came and toughed it out on our Friday show, and he'll be super healthy for our Tuesday show. Thanks a lot, Mr. Hirsch. We appreciate you, and we'll get your take on the quarterbacks next week.
Later, guys.
Later,
right, brother. All right. So back to the point on Dez as to where we feel like at the meet. I personally think New York would be a good fit, especially with the talk of moving Odell Beckham. But if you can get him, he and Eli might be a really good fit. And that's one way to stick it to the Cowboys. But I'm not sure that he'll make an emotional move like that. I'm not sure about Washington because, I don't know what you have, but, he and Alex Smith, that might be interesting to see too. So I'm sure it'll be up in the air, and I'm more than positive he'll make not just an emotional decision, but a structural decision as to what'll be the best fit for him. Someone that it can get him the ball. I would like to see he and Aaron Rodgers, to be honest with you, because Aaron Rodgers has a way of getting the ball in the nice little pockets and windows, and not only that, he's an end zone threat. You have to worry about him in the back of the end zone in that red zone situation. So, all of those are good choices, but I personally think he may go with New York.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing. I mean, yes, everybody's got to look at the salary cap and how much money do we have to play with, and what do we got to give up? Because if I'm going to get a guy like Dez, do I have to get rid of a guy like Odell in that case? And other teams thinking the same thing too. But there are some teams I'm still questioning and wondering what their motive is as well. And I think I can look at a team like even Jacksonville. What do they got for salary cap space? What can they do? What kind of arrangements can they make? Especially when they knew they were kind of close last time around. Can they do some type of a swap trade, whatever it might be, or dump somebody for some money? Miami's looking for people because they just friggin' unloaded everybody too. Mm-hmm. So there's some other teams, and I know this is again going to be up to Dez to figure out exactly where he wants, and I think it's going to come down to where does he have the best chance of winning. That's the biggest thing. So I mean, look at even teams like Buffalo and all these places. I mean, I don't think he wants to play up there in cold, but I'm just saying there's a lot of others that are out there right now that he's going to look at, and other teams are going to be looking at him right now too, saying, okay, how can we do something? What kind of offer can we make? And all these incentives, et cetera, et cetera. So I do think that there's going to be more than just he left with his emotions on his sleeve like that, saying, I'll see you boys, all this. But I got a feeling, though, that there's going to be a little bit more going on in the next little bit on this one.
Oh, absolutely, Coach. You hit it dead on. And one of the things that you'll see, there's Todd Gurley is actually rallying for him to come and take a visit down in L.A. Now, if he comes to L.A., now that'll be pretty awesome.
You can't have everybody, Coach.
Yeah. I got a feeling he's going to be looking at everybody. He's going to look at Oakland. He's going to look at Seattle, San Fran, Miami. Yeah. He's got the cream of the crop right now. It just comes down with what can we pay him.
You mentioned San Fran. I'm sorry, Blaine. You mentioned San Fran. Now that's interesting. Garoppolo and bringing in a Dez Bryant. You don't have. You got a guy that kind of fits what you had in Michael Crabtree, but an upgrade, in my opinion. You think that'll be interesting?
Well, and that's what I'm saying. You can throw him in there on a 1 year plan. I mean, look, there's a lot of different things that can be played out here. It's going to be who's going to give him the best of what does Dez want. Now, like Chris Rose, you were saying, I mean, you don't think he's that great at certain things, but he's still going to demand something, and he's still going to need attention and get a big paycheck no matter where he goes. It's just a matter of what team is going to bite up for it. And you know what? You never know. He might even go to the Patriots because they find a way of getting somebody for something too. So, Mr. Blaine, what do you think about that?
Well, I'm going to start off with what Coach Christopher said about New York as far as the Giants are concerned. I think it's I think Dez wants to play there. It's an emotional play for Dez. He have no problem playing for the Giants because he gets to play Dallas twice a year. But I don't know if the Giants are that up on having Dez there or being able to fit him in, possibly having to cut another player to fit him in, and what benefit that would be or how much of a benefit that would be to them. As far as the Ravens are concerned, anybody looking at the Ravens signing Dez, it's not going to happen. Ravens are up against the cap, and though you can play with the cap and tricky things like that, you're not going to be able to do it against other teams with more money, bigger wallets than you have. And it'll just be a bidding war. And when the Ravens are in a bidding war, they lose anyway. So one team nobody's talking about now, if Dez wants to play the Cowboys this year, I believe the Cowboys play the South, AFC South, if I'm not mistaken. If he can't sign within the division, what about a team that's real close by, the Texans? I mean, he's still there, and then he can play Dallas, and then if Dallas loses to the Texans, he can drive around and just grin at them in Dallas, every time, every week, or in the bye week. So I think he'd be a good fit for the Texans. Competitive team, young competitive quarterback who shows great upside.
What, and we kind of like glossed over the obvious one. Who likes to pay people more than they're worth in free agency? Who plays in the NFC East, so he could play him twice. And now they have like an okay quarterback. Washington. This is a Washington free agency overpay, like coming from a mile away. This is the exact kind of thing where they paid him like a number one wide receiver. He goes up there and catches like 60 balls for 3 touchdowns and 700 yards and punches someone on the sideline. This is a total Washington, perfect off-season kind of move. I think that is exactly what you would see. I mean, because he does have a lot of talent still. He does have a lot going on. But you saw when you took out that running game and they tried to kind of lean on Dez as the number one target there with Dak. Dak looked subpar. Not even great, not even average, like subpar. They were bad at the end of last year. They were bad. And
but how much money do they got to play with, though? That's what it comes down to. How much money does Washington have to play with?
Oh, they have a lot, actually. I can tell you that exact number.
But who is coming up, though? That's the next question, is who is coming up for the next renewal on their contract that they got to still dish out? And again, the only way I can see some of that fitting, too, is are they going to bail on Josh Norman to free up even more cash?
Well, they have more than enough money. They got rid of their big stuff. They have $19 million in cap space, more or less, 16, depending on a couple of things. So they have 16, but they're going to cut that down by camp. They just paid a bunch of money to Paul Richardson from the Seahawks because the Seahawks were going to pay him that much money. He was a deep threat. They have a couple of young guys that they really want to work on in that receiver core. You have Crowder. I'm trying to blank with him. I'm trying to find him in this article. They have the other kid who's in his third year, who's really has a lot of upside. You have those tight ends. I mean, they have a lot of weapons to work with, but they can't fit them. They have a lot of space. It's the first time because they cut a lot of people, so they have a lot of space. So they could do it. Giants, they would have to do some magic tricks. The Colts, I just don't see Dez going anywhere. At this point, if he was willing to take a pay cut to go back to Dallas, I think he wants to go somewhere and win. Because he mentioned in like 4 or 5 times on Twitter and other places that he's starting to talk about his legacy, about how he wants to be remembered. He wants to be remembered a Cowboy. He wants to be in that. He wants to have, he wanted his number retired. He wanted to be mentioned with those great receivers. He wanted to be like T.O. He wanted to do all these things. You can see that he's at a point in his life where he's starting to think about his legacy. And I think that's going to influence where he goes a lot. Go ahead.
I don't see much more of a legacy. I mean,
well, winning
his best years are behind him.
He's never won a playoff game.
Yeah, his best years are behind
ring,
him.
man.
I mean,
it's all about the ring.
Yeah, he can get a ring. Now it's personal gratification. I'm sorry, Shane. Go ahead. So what are we saying?
No, it's he wants a ring. He wants a ring bad, and he's got to look and see how he's going to get a ring and who's the best team for him that's going to be able to do it. That's all I'm saying.
But it's more than just the ring. It's more than just the ring. It's also his pride. He wants to prove that he's not done, that Dallas did him wrong today, he wants to prove that he still has it. But you can get a ring, Shane, by sitting on the bench and being part of the team.
Yeah, but he's not going to go to a crappy team to just prove a point. I mean, he's got to go to a team that's going to be a contender, and that's where he's going to be looking at. So he's not going to ride a bench no matter where he goes. But he's going to go to a team that he's going to be a competitor, and that's it. So that's what I'm seeing.
So
take it, Chris.
So this is a good question. Let's start with you. I'll pass it to you. I'll give my opinion on it, and I'll pass it to you, Coach Christopher. I think that Dez has always been, in his youth, he was someone that was willing to burn down a bridge because the toll operator didn't have change. Whatever. I don't have a metaphor ready. Sorry, folks. I didn't write a metaphor that fitted, but you get what I'm saying. Cut off the nose despite the face. He's willing, like pride, respect. That's something that he's always been about. And in his youth, it was about getting respect from other players and from news and from the organization and seeing his contract as respect. And he's made that money. And now, as I hear it, he's actually became kind of a savvy. He's doing okay. He didn't, blow it all on a white tiger in a house in Vegas. He's actually doing all right. But now, being let go as someone that's not even worth giving a pay cut, I think he wants to go show that he can win. And I think that he still talks to Tony Romo, and what they talk about is we were so good, but you know what follows them? We never won a playoff game. And I don't see him taking. Well, what I'm trying to get to, and I'll pass this to Coach Christopher. You tell me what you think. I'm trying to say, like 4 years ago, if they would have cut Dez would have been like, I'm not playing for less than X and Y and Z plus L, right? And now he wants. I think he's focused. I think the more I talk myself into this on this show, I think Dez is a good pickup.
Well, that was the point I was trying to make earlier. You still have to respect what he brings. He's still a red zone threat, and he's still capable of making that big play when it popped. But you got to think, he being the best receiver on the Cowboys, he demanded double teams and he demanded attentions. Those safeties cheated over to where he was at. And that's why those other guys like Beasley and some of those other guys could be open, because a lot of the coaches and Coach Shane would do this game plan to try and eliminate the deep field threat until they got. And you got to think about this. A lot of this is prior to they picking up Ezekiel Elliott. So when the running game came and Ezekiel Elliott is running as well as he is, well, you're going to feed the beast, And so now those big plays to Dez weren't as coming in as much frequencies, because they were getting big plays from the running game, and that's what they were hanging their hat on. But I still believe Dez is a good pickup for anywhere he goes. I mentioned Washington earlier with Alex Smith. Alex Smith has opened up somehow, and we saw he's not afraid to go deep and throw the deep ball. And then there's the New York City Giants, the football Giants, where the Big Apple, Eli Manning, and I think that's just the thing that Eli might need to revive and get his respect back for whatever years he has left.
Wait, real quick, Blake. I know you're about to jump in. Real quick, I just want to add this, and we'll let you and Shane finish this off. I was thinking about this. We talked about the 49ers earlier. Just added to your comments. Could Dez be a slow version of Julio in that Shanahan offense? Don't know. Go ahead and say what you're going to say, and if you want to answer that, go ahead. We'll go Blaine, Shane, and then we're going to move on to a very sensitive topic close to my heart.
Okay, well, I think that there's going to be a 1-year contract, or he's looking for at least just a 1-year contract if he can get it anywhere in the East. If his emotions stay as they are, I think he needs time to get over the emotional thing and look better for where his career would benefit. As Shane said, get a ring. But the Eagles in that division, I don't see that happening. New York, I'm not really high on that, but I can see how he could add to that offense with OBJ. What did I say? OBJ? Yeah, OBJ. And I did. Yeah, the Washington Redskins make sense. But I still say look for him to look for. I mean, you look at. I like the Texans. I mean, look at the quarterback. You got a young quarterback there. They need some help there on receiver.
That's not bad.
I think that's a team to be reckoned with. If he goes to them, that's an upgrade right away.
Nuke, Fuller, and Dez, and he gets to stay in Texas.
Yeah,
that's actually super sharp there, Blaine. Wow, look at you!
I just did a backflip.
That's a good point.
He already said that. He already said that an hour ago. I feel like I'm on one of those. I feel like I'm on a show of the Twilight Zone here with you guys, man. Oh my gosh! But you did make a good point about that. You are right that I think the Texans do play a factor in some of this as well. If Dez is looking at that as well as just staying in that state himself, I just don't think he can make it out there in Giant land. I think if he's going to New York, it'll be to the Jets then because they're the only ones that got the big money to play with. I just don't think New York Giants will do anything. But I do think that, like I said, San Fran is an interesting bite in some ways too that could entice him in some point to say, listen, look at what we've done with this offense so far, and we can draft and we can make some moves, and we do have enough to get you through a good year or two at the most right now. So that's something you can look at too. But like I said, I just don't know about it going to playing with Odell, and that ain't going to happen. I just don't see that happen. But Texas, I think Texans could make it work. I think the Texans could make it work.
What I was mentioning about Odell was I was saying if they trade Odell, because a lot of people are saying that they're going to trade Odell before the draft. So if you traded Odell, got a couple of first-round draft picks, and signed Dez off the street without a trade.
Okay, who are they going to who are they going to trade Odell to though?
Oh, I got something for that in a second. We'll bring that up in a second if you want to, because that's one of the things. And there's actually the two people that a lot of experts say are going to be traded. One of them breaks my heart, and I hope these guys are wrong. But they say that both Odell and
Russell Wilson.
That story is a non-starter. Earl Thomas.
What? Come on.
Yeah. They're talking about. We're gonna get to Seahawks right now.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah. Say something smart ass. I can already feel it coming out from your belly.
Isn't that obvious? Isn't that obvious?
Yeah, say it.
No, you said it. You said Dez didn't buy a house in Vegas. Does that mean he doesn't want to play for the Raiders?
There you go. Now you're talking. Finally, Blaine, you're getting something straight here. Come on. That would be perfect.
I would take a one on Dez over a healthy Amari Cooper.
You know what? I think you guys need to be biting your tongues. Look, you guys need to bite your tongues a little bit right now, okay?
Guys, now, I didn't say that.
Here's the thing, all right, is that him playing for the Raiders would be crazy and phenomenal, but it ain't going to happen because that's just not the way Gruden wants to go. But mind you never know. He likes his old-time players. He might just pull something out of his hat.
I could totally see him doing
that. I would tell you, Dez, that's one hell of a player there, man. That's a football player, that Dez.
I actually have an
with
article right
Gruden?
here that says I actually have an article right in front of me right now that says in Gruden voice, "That's Des Bryant, man. You throw that ball up, he's gonna come down with it in the end zone, red zone, everywhere, man." It's a Raider. It's a writer who put that. And he said in Gruden voice. He actually said the Raiders are a good team for him to
That's
go
a
to.
football player.
Yeah, there you go. That's fun.
That would be so sweet. That would be so sweet if that could happen.
Jordy, Dez, and
What?
Amari.
Hell yeah!
But that's three older, slower guys.
And Jordy?
You know what? You need to settle down over there, Chris. All right, because we're going to be getting to the Seahawks here pretty soon, and I don't see much happening there. They can't even find themselves a running back for the past 3 years already.
Okay, see, you know what? You're like an ex-girlfriend who's like, she's not that cute.
Or a kicker.
Anyways, actually, you know what? Let's. This is a serious talk. This is something I've literally been kicked off of guest appearances on shows about, and I'm gonna try and we can go in a circle a couple of times. This is something I actually have. I can't say a name, but I actually have an inside track on this. This is something that really pisses me off, and once again, I'm gonna try and cut my comments a little bit. But when I read this, I thought I need to make this clear. Coach Christopher wanted to talk about it. We have a cop. I'm on it. Let's go. And Blaine is actually going to hear me flip on Kaepernick at the end. So I want to start off by saying I have defended Kaepernick's rights since day one. I think that, and Shane, when it gets to you, you can talk to me about this. I was in the military, but I feel bad about saying that because I was non-combat, and in this kind of climate, I don't like putting that out there because of 3 or 4 years after me, everyone had seriously tougher times than I did. So I'm not trying to say anything, but we didn't want that. Pete Carroll came out, backed up all his guys. I'll get to the specifics in a second. Last year and this year, people talk about Seattle is snuffing Kaepernick. They're the only team that brings him in for a workout and talks to him about a contract every year. So if they just stayed quiet, like the guy who called all of his players inmates in Texas and just don't even call him up, and they stay off the radar. But they call him in. So I'm going to get to that in a second as to why that is ridiculous. That the team gets nailed is the one that actually is the only one that calls him in, brings him in, and talks to him. And that's the one in the offseason because writers have nothing else to write about that they mess with. And I'm going to back up Colin. I'm going to say a bunch of things that the media's done to Colin. I'm going to give my one Colin rant of the year. I know you guys always, talk to me about saying this. So I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to talk about how those pig socks with the cop hat on them were given to him by a police officer at a party that my friend was at 3 years before the kneeling, but then the media put that in just after the kneeling to make it look like he wore them there. And it's his brother-in-law, who's a cop, that gave it to him and thought it was funny to take the picture. And the media just goes crazy in the off season. They're totally full of shit. And that's okay. Never. And I would like to hear from African American gentlemen on this show and a police officer on the show, and me as someone else. Are we at a point where someone who would like to stand up for his rights, as opposed to going to the streets and causing a situation where there's violence, where there's confrontation with riot police and all those things that could be done by someone with his stature, only just bows down for a second? I will take that type of anything over violence or over causing problems and causing those things that are so ugly. Just sit down for a second and cause conversation. I will take that over violence any day of the week. Now, with that said, I'm going to let Coach Christopher, I know he feels very strongly about this, agree, disagree, but also, and I'll tell people, because you're from South Central Los Angeles, tell people about what Uncle Pete is before people start saying that Pete cut him off because he didn't want him to speak his voice about crime in the black community, because I think it's very important, and I'm going to talk about that later. So we'll go Coach Christopher, Blaine, and then we'll go to former officer Shane McGowan.
Uh, well, the area I grew up in, of course, the relationships with the police was controversial to say the least. But from a realistic standpoint, with the violence that was going on in my community, it wasn't. It was quite understood the danger that police have to um, that they put their lives in danger every night that they go to work. And I know for a fact, being an athlete kept me out of a lot of trouble, but uh, it didn't stop, me having my run-ins with the law. And I've always tried to make, not never to say run-ins with the law, but run-ins with police. And some were great, some were uncomfortable, but I always have to keep in mind my manner, my attitude, how I respond, so that, because at the end of the day, I know that officer wants to go home to his family just like I want to go home to mine. So, with that being said, I understand the injustice that Colin Kaepernick, if this is the cause for him taking a knee, I understand the intent behind what he's doing. I understand is bringing attention to uh, social injustice in his perspective, and this is his way of speaking out. But I also feel like that if you want a job in the NFL and you understand that this is a condition that will prohibit you, or that prohibits teams from buying in, because it has been associated that your kneeling or your protest has been the reason that people have gotten away from football. Now, I beg to differ. I think that injury, I think that concussion, I think that the lack of kids playing youth sports translates into youth football, translates into the lack of youth playing high school, which translates into the lack of youth going into college. You understand? So the people are just not watching football, and there are other reasons why. Streaming devices. I don't have to watch a live football game. I can go do something else and still come home and watch the game. So I'm not sure if the popularity of football has suffered because of protests versus other entities such as concussions. And I know Coach Shane can vouch for this. I've had a lot of parents say, listen, I don't know about what's going on with this, so I'm going to pull my kid away. I'd rather be safe than sorry. One headache that the kid gets at football practice, and the parents say, oh, no more football for you, because we don't know if this is concussion syndrome or things like the other. So I think a lot of that has to do with the lack of popularity in the league. So Colin Kaepernick has to and then the bottom line, it is a business. And as a business owner, I'm looking at my bottom line. If you're going to stop people from buying jerseys, from coming to football games because I bring you in, then I'm not going to bring you in. So I'll move on from that. Blaine, you want to give your take?
Yeah, very well put, Coach. My problem with this whole Kaepernick thing is that I think we're talking about two different issues here, and the line has been blurred. And now the blurred line is being taken advantage of. What Colin Kaepernick did in the protest is in the true spirit of the civil rights movement of the 60s under Dr. Martin Luther King. Peaceful and civil protests. Now, he didn't ask everybody he didn't even bring any attention to it at first. It was caught haphazardly, and then he was asked about it, and then he spoke up about it. And it became a big movement. Okay? All right, that aside, we know that history. That's his activism. Now, as far as him not being on a team and what's going on with Seattle, and if it's true that they said that they asked him not to kneel anymore, and when he said he wouldn't, or we wouldn't agree to that, they decided not to bring him in. That's totally, they're right. As it is, Colin Kaepernick's right to protest and kneel. And as you said, Coach Christopher, it comes to the NFL. It comes to selling merchandise, the business, and they want to get viewers in the stand. They want spectators in the stands. They want the fans to buy their product. And they have a lot of issues going on with concussions and mothers already not wanting them to, or feeling, not just mothers, but parents in general, not feeling, very confident about their children's safety. Okay. But to try and take away somebody's right to protest, I wouldn't want to play for that team. Now, given one thing that we haven't brought up is Colin Kaepernick said back months ago at the end of the season that he would probably stand for the national anthem if he signed for another team. And I don't know whether it's the fact that Seattle asked him to not kneel.
I'll answer all those questions in just a second.
Okay.
We'll on the next round.
But my point I want to close on is the fact that I think that the one side of it is Colin Kaepernick's activism. I'm all for. I supported it. I think anybody who thinks that what he did is disrespecting the flag has it backwards, or the national anthem is backwards. That's what it stands for. That's what you should be doing. If anything, it's the most respectful thing you can do for the national anthem is protest. Not protest the anthem. He's not protesting the anthem. He's protesting a civil action. Okay? So the other side of it is, does he want to play football? I'm not convinced he wants to play football. I think that if he wanted to play football, he'd be with a team. He had options. He had an opportunity to play with the team. And yes, I'm going to say it, the Ravens. And he screwed it. He has not convinced me he wants to play a team. The other part of that is I don't know anybody who sues an employer they're trying to get a job with. It just makes no sense to me. I think this is just a grandstand by him. If anybody had a right to sue for collusion, it's Ray Rice. I mean, he didn't get a sniff. Nobody even called him. His phone didn't even ring to come in for a tryout after the production that he did 2 years before. Okay? So I think this is all, grandstanding. That part is just grandstanding. I don't support what Kaepernick is doing now with the league. But I do support his protest and his right to protest. Shane?
Well, like I said, yes, I am a former member LAPD SWAT. I've seen many, many things. I've been involved in many situations in my career at my time. My biggest thing, as I always will say, is that I do believe Kaepernick is the talent of a great quarterback at times out there. And he just needs to get himself a chance to show that he could play on a winning team, too, if he had the right support. I always thought he was a decent quarterback out there. He just needed that shot. The biggest thing, though, is, you look around that league, and we could all vouch for the same thing, between domestic disputes, between assaults, between drugs, between this, that, and the other. You've got a ton of criminals in the NFL, all right? By Colin Kaepernick taking a knee, that is not a criminal, all right? That is, to me, that's not a criminal. For other athletes out there to say, you know what, I support him of what he's doing. I'll back him. I'll do whatever. I back my teammates who have also done things in that way too to show their support and loyalty. All right. That's what I look at. And so I'm just saying is that this really is something that I think is an interesting conversation. There's no question about it. And it's always going to be a big conversation. And it's going to keep going until someone decides to say, all right, Colin, come into camp. Let's see if you can make it or not.
So this is now that's perfect. And what you just said is what the media and other people aren't getting. And I know I gave Coach Christopher like way too much, but Pete Carroll is in South Central. Like when we pass to him next, like Pete Carroll is known. Like people talk about him leaving USC, whatever. Pete Carroll goes to those homes. Even kids he doesn't pick up for the school, he knows those people. He can walk down there. They call him Uncle Pete. Like he has done so much. And the idea that they're getting rid of people because they speak up. I said this last year and the year before, and it's true. There's only a few different teams that can pick up Colin Kaepernick. One of the things you need is an owner that has FU money, which the Seattle owner is one of the richest people in the world. You need a fan base that is somewhat liberal, democratic. Like, for instance, the Baltimore owner gave $1 million to Trump's inaugural fund, which is a fund that has no trace. Same with Raj Khan, which he came back and said he made a mistake later on. Those are those things that come across. The Baltimore owner is hugely involved in conservative politics, which is fine. I'm not putting him down, but it's obvious that came out. He gave it a chance, but he came out to the people who fund him, and that became politicized. Seattle's the one place that they don't care. Last year they brought him in, and they didn't sign him. You know why? Because Colin said he wanted to be a starter. So they said, Colin's a starter. We don't need a starting quarterback right now, but he's the first person we're going to call. They didn't say it so much, but the same person that gave me this inside scoop on this deal for what I'm about to say gave me the last one. He basically he wants to start. He wants to do something, and he loves Seattle. He respects Seattle. But he wanted to be a starting quarterback. They didn't even talk about salary. But the funny thing is that people talk about Seattle cutting him out, but they're the only team that pays for him to fly in and work out. And he kind of took it in this case, and this is something like, I'll just say that I said it so I don't get anyone in trouble. I'm going to take this into a different direction real quick and come back. Johnny Manziel. Johnny Manziel is in the program. He's trying to get better. He did a pro day. He met a kid where he works out who's at a smaller college. He said, "Who's throwing to you?" He said, "I think one of the coaches or maybe one of the backup quarterbacks." He's like, I'll fly out and do it for you. And people say maybe he's standing up, but he's trying. He's putting workouts on tape. He's talking football. He's working football. That's all he's doing. RG3, the biggest letdown of a career we've seen in a long time. He's trying every day. He wants to live football. Colin's not living football. What happened in this case, Pete Carroll and that whole team, people forget that the co-chair of all the Northwestern charities with Colin Kaepernick's charities were Michael Bennett, Russell Wilson, and Doug Baldwin. Pete Carroll totally backed that, but Pete wants it to be all one team. Pete's the one that got the Green Beret to come out and talk to Colin Kaepernick and do the interview to stand up for him. Pete works with the military. He works with the police. He took all that money and we've talked about this before. He put it into training cops how to de-escalate and putting that money into the police force opposed to putting the money into something else. The idea that Seattle can't handle him is a problem. So, once again, this will be the second of my three rants on this because this is very important to me, and I got the exact right people to talk about this. So bear with me 1 second. So the idea that he can't handle that, or he can't handle the idea, what I guarantee happens, and I have reformation on this. I've told the story about how when Pete got there, the number one player they had was TJ Husbanzada. In the meeting, he said, "Everyone, I know it sounds simple. Move 2 rows, move 1 seat over. I want you guys to all be in, and the coach is asking you just to move 1 seat. The only person who didn't do it was TJ, gone the next day." They asked Colin, "What do you want to do? Can we help you? Do you want to kneel? Do you want to do whatever? But we're just bringing you in for a workout. You're not special." Like Coach just said, you're not special. You're coming in for a workout. You haven't worked in 2 years. You haven't put anything up. We're the only two. We have no problem with your politics. We just want to know, are you into what we're doing? And this is the team that that it was us against the world, won a Super Bowl, went to a Super Bowl, and then 2 years ago and last year started to lose control of their players and things. And what did Pete do? Fired the entire coaching staff, got rid of all the older players that felt entitled. He wants to build that same deal. He just signed a 5-year extension. He wants to play for 5 years. He wants people that are going to buy in. And when he asked Cap, and this is what happened, he didn't say, "Are you going to kneel? Because if you are, you can't come in." Cap said, "I don't know." And that's not okay with Pete. Pete would rather have a scrub that buys in and loves the team, and they all have to tap that "I'm all in" thing before they go to practice. That's what it is, and that's what the writers miss. Is if you're going to be ambivalent and say "I don't know, I might," then you're done. So I'm sorry, my second rant went a little too long. But that's what the deal is. And you can back it up with the fact that he just fired his entire coaching staff because, when there was them against the world, he tried to keep it together, and he will let you. But, Michael Bennett has no problem with it. And Michael Bennett would tell the whole world if Pete was trying to censor anybody. But Pete said, you know what? This team has grown. We've let them grow as much as they want to grow. And he talked about Sherm. Sherm saying, I want to beat the Seattle twice a year. He goes, yeah, that's what Sherm is. That's why we had him on the team. He's a competitor. But Pete said, okay, this has gotten to the point. I need everyone to buy in again. I need youngsters. That's us against the world. So that's how I want to get that out there. And I know that from someone that works in the building. So I'll pass it to you, Coach Christopher. Sorry I went a little too
Oh,
long.
quite all, man. Listen, a lot of very strong points that you make about Pete Carroll, because I personally know that Pete Carroll has funded and through donation one of the food programs that I actually work at in LA, and so I know what you mean. At our facility, we have an autographed football for Pete Carroll when he was at Seattle after he won the Super Bowl. And he comes to LA still to this day and does a lot of those things as you say. So much respect to Pete Carroll. He is that kind of guy. But let's get back to as it relates with Colin Kaepernick. See, those statements are relate back to what Blaine said. Does he really want to play football? That's the question here. If you really want to play, and these are the things that you have to do. If it's about playing football, okay, I've made my point. Attention has been brought to the matter that I've been speaking about, and now things are being done and not just said, but they're actually being done. There are interventions, there are programs, there's money allocated to educate and to train one another. But it goes back to the disconnection of the community and people understanding the business aspect of the sport. Bottom line, if you affect my bottom line, I can't have you here.
Is it worth the negative press for a uninterested backup quarterback? I'm playing devil's advocate because once again, I want to. I back him up.
Absolutely.
I just want you to kind of talk on that a bit.
No, Chris, I understand exactly, man. And in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, it's not worth it if you're not ready to buy into see, because there are two egos on every team, and I know Coach Shane can vouch for this. There are two egos on every team. There's the quarterback and there is the coach. And no ego, the coach feels that no ego is bigger than his automatically. And if you can't buy in the system, I don't care if you're a stud or not, you out of here. And that's what you're dealing with when you're talking about Seattle. But outside of Seattle, also Colin Kaepernick himself is not speaking. He's not vocal. He's not, showing, what he's out there doing in the community. And I mean, as far as workouts and stuff like that. So it goes back to the point that Blaine made. And I appreciate that Blaine, is he really interested in football or,
Yeah, he's not showing any passion.
Right.
He's not showing any passion for football.
It's the only stadium in a preseason in a game. The fans stood up when he kneeled and clapped for him.
Well, but wait a minute, Chris. I want to. I mean, because you're.
Yeah, but I'm saying a lot of people said they're going to lose sponsors, not in Seattle. I'm sorry.
I want to ask you this though, Chris. I mean, you're talking about Pete Carroll like he's the owner of the team. What does the owner have to say about this whole issue? I doubt if Pete Carroll had the deciding say in this. I mean, whether or not decide him.
No, that's a great point, and I think I kind of brushed over that, and I'll make it real quick, and I'll let you jump on. The owner is a person who worked in civil rights for his entire life. He's one of the richest people in the world. He does not bow to anybody, and he tells Pete and them. But you guys forget, Marshawn has sat for the anthem just because he's tired or his knees hurt, or he sits in the locker room laying down with his headphones on for every game. Michael Bennett knelt at every game. I mean, he brought he used to work under Bud Grant, right? And Bud Grant would make all of his players hold arms together at the national anthem. So I mean, he worked out that hey, you know what? Whatever we do, let's do it as a team. So they held arms together. They let some people say, hey, I'm not feeling this. They let people kneel. The owner says, I want personalities and I'm paying you to bring the personalities and I want them to be the best players and the best men they can be. And Paul Allen is the best owner, one of the best owners. He stays hands off. He helps people, like when they accidentally drafted that kid who had a heart defect. They paid him as an IR player for a full like year and a half, whatever it was, so he could have all his medical covered by the league insurance. I mean, these guys are good guys, you know. The owner is, you know, whatever you think about Pete, I don't want to get into that. But the owner is a really good guy. He says, I trust you. I ride with you. And if some people don't like it, that's okay. It's our family. And Pete says, cool. But if someone is not part of this family or they outgrow this family like kids do, they got to go. And that's what it is.
So where did the
Paul Allen has no problem with standing up against it. And he's the one that brought in the military to talk to the Seahawks guys. And they say, hey, man, you're not being violent. Kneel your ass off. Because you have naval bases, the Ranger base, all kinds of stuff right there. They do like Marine stuff. They do stuff in military during practice all the time. You can look it up on YouTube. And Paul Allen says, you know what, the world is bigger, and that I have no problem with someone having a quiet, nonviolent protest. Paul Allen is totally cool.
So, but it seems to be a contradiction here of why this issue even came up about him kneeling as a factor of him coming in. And
what they said was, what do you want to do? And he's like, whatever I want. I don't have to tell you. That's the disconnect from the story, from what I heard. Whatever. He's just kind of like whatever. Like, no, we'll help you. We'll put together a charity for you. What do you want to do? We've already put together charities for you. How do you want to do football? What is your stance going to be on the kneeling, so we can help you? We can work it out. We can think about this stuff. Come in and work out. Tell us what you want to do. Tell us what your life is. Pete Carroll makes all of his coaches write out something as if they were the head coach of the team. Every single coach at the beginning of the year. And they have something similar with players. He said, I want to know, what do you want your life to be if you are on this team going forward? And he said, I don't know. And Pete said, cool. Don't worry about it. Don't come in. And they signed another backup. That's
okay.
It.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So you're saying that you've been saying that you're saying that had nothing to do with him kneeling.
The fact that here's, maybe I'm not clear. The distinction of, if you kneel, you can't come here, is what the media is putting on. Is not the story. And you've never heard Pete or John Snyder ever come out and say, this is what I actually said. There's never been this controversy. They don't talk about it. They let the media smash them. They don't care. What happened was they said, what do you want to do? Do you want to be a politician? Are you working quarterback? What do you want to do? And he was ambivalent. And they said, cool, don't worry about it. And that was it.
Okay, I'm going to let that lie. I think they should speak up if that's the case, because it makes them look like
they don't care.
Like what I think they should care, because their public image is taking a hit. So they should care and set the record straight.
Look at
as far as let's go.
If you come into the family, they back you. If not, Pete Carroll's whole thing is everything else outside of this room is noise. I'm sorry. I'll let you guys go on.
If it paints a bad picture publicly of you, I mean, every organization, every business wants their image clean. They want their reputation clean. So if that's the case, that they don't care that much, I'm sorry. I feel a disconnect with that. I mean, what you said about Steve Bisciotti is probably right. But I'm going to tell you, even though he would stand for the national anthem, he's never told, to my knowledge, he's never told any of his players they can't kneel. Unlike McNair and this guy over in Tampa Bay, that says that they're going to bench, and even Jerry Jones talking about benching people because of it. I mean, Steve Bisciotti is for my taste, he's a wimp. I mean, he's nothing. God rest his soul. Art Modell would do what he intended to do and not make excuses for it. So I'll give you that about Bisciotti. But he was going to sign or at least considering signing Kaepernick. Did he do it correctly as far as the public image? No, but that's the That's the point. You want your sponsors and your public image clean about it.
Just so you know, this is why I don't let Kaepernick go on to the major shows, because it ends up like this. So let's hear from Coach Shane, and then let's give Coach Christopher a chance to go, because the conversation always just mash it. It happened. We watched it happen all last year. So this is why I don't do it. This is the one show. So this will be in the archives, but this is the one show. So Coach Shane, man, so many things to talk about. Let's hear from Coach Christopher, and then we'll talk a little bit about it.
Okay, I'm going to ask you guys this one thing. Right now, who is the owner of the Oakland Raiders?
The guy that pays $200 for a bowl cut.
The guy with the haircut, yeah.
The guy with the haircut.
Al Davis Jr. or Al Davis. Was it Al Davis Jr.?
Yeah. And anyways, if his father, Al Davis, was still around, Kaepernick would be playing for the Oakland Raiders if he believed that Cap could come in there and help that team. Because Al Davis was the guy that always went against the NFL. It was his way. He made it his way. He took no BS from any team or anybody.
I still haven't on Kaepernick, by the way. I'm going to smash Kaepernick in a second. Go ahead.
And if he felt that this guy could come in here and help this team win, he'd sign you. Simple. But we don't have any of these Al Davises anymore, to a certain degree.
Thank you.
So that's all I've got to say about when it comes to who I think in ownership-wise, Al Davis would have been the man to do this, and I guarantee he would have done it without any questions. That's all I know.
All right, Coach Christopher, do you have something you want to say? Do you want to have something you want to say? Because so far I backed my Seahawks and I backed Kaepernick, but I'm about to smash on Kaepernick after this. If you have something you want to say ahead of time, go ahead. If not, I'm gonna drop some knowledge.
No, I'm not gonna smash on Cap. I'm not. And it's okay if you outgrow football. You know what I mean? It's all right, because for people, he maybe never really. That's the best way I could put it. It's okay to outgrow football, and if that's what you have done, don't allow the circumstance to keep you getting these black eyes. You understand what I mean? Go ahead and say, hey, listen, my life is taking me beyond football. This is what I want to do. And he's had a voice enough to where he can make money, and that's the thing in itself. But I just think I'm sold, and Blaine's been saying this a while, and now he's made a believer out of me. I don't think he has the passion to play football anymore, just with that. And the things that he went through, those things can take that passion away. Being in those situations and you're not used to that or not mentally prepared. Just because you're physically gifted and you can pick up X and O's doesn't mean that mentally you can handle the stress of being in the limelight for reasons other than football. And I know Coach Shane will agree with that. So I believe that's the point. He should move on from football because obviously he's not interested.
I'm going to go on and say that I think when we look back on this in 15, 20, 30 years, this is going to be a huge deal. This will be taught in schools, and I applaud him. I have donated. I back Kaepernick the person 100%. The fact that Seattle brings him in every year, the only team that brings him in to work out, by the way, 2 years in a row. Baltimore didn't even bring him in. They talked about bringing him in. Seattle brings him in, buys him a plane ticket 2 years in a row, and they're the ones that get nailed. That makes me mad. But Kaepernick, if you want to feel special and feel like a starter, how about this? Since 2012, you against the Seahawks, you have a 35% completion rate, 3 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 18 sacks, 50 rating, 2 lost fumbles, and no rushing touchdowns, because they figured out if you overload the left side, make you run to your left, cut off half the field. You're only a two-read quarterback. And if you have fast guys like Bobby Wagner and Cliff Averill, they smash you. So I'm sorry, but that team who did that to you didn't make you feel special enough. That's it. That's my smash. Because you know what? There are weaknesses in his game. He is a great quarterback, but they showed the weaknesses in the game, but there's no humility anymore. And once
See,
again,
I wouldn't call him a great quarterback.
I didn't say he was a great quarterback. I said he's not a great quarterback. I said he has talent.
You called him a great quarterback just now.
Well, I didn't mean it like that. I said he has shown greatness, but in the NFL, people are paid millions of dollars to study your tape. And you watch his last games, they rush him from the left side. They have some floaters. They move him. They overload the left side like an old Steelers blitz, a zone blitz on the left side. They make him move to the left. They cut off half the field. He can only read a couple of deals, and if you have those floaters, he can't run. He has some problems, but he seems to be. But I do want to say that all of the things I'm talking about as far as Kaepernick's mental state, he has never come out and said a bad word about a single team. Yes, Blaine, I know. So you know what? We're going to talk quarterbacks, but I think that we're going to leave this here, and we're going to do some stuff on. We're going to do the Mancini show on Tuesday. But I kind of like this group, so I'm going to try and talk the two coaches into doing another show with us next week and see if we can't do something. So real quick, Coach Shane McGowan and Coach Christopher, I'm going to start with you, Shane. Why don't you tell us, besides the wonderful Knucklehead podcast, where can people reach you and where can they find you? And I'll give our plug at the end. So go ahead, Shane.
All right. Well, thank you very much for having me on again. It's always a pleasure being on with all you great guys. You can reach me at mentaledgeperformance.ca. You can email me, coach@mentaledgeperformance.ca. I also write for USA Today High School Sports every week, as well as for Train Fitness Magazine as well, once a month. I also have my other show that I do on air with the coach on Fox Sports over there on the East Coast as well. So it's on Sunday morning. So I do plug this great product that we produce every week as well. And lots of talk will be happening this Sunday too. So I'll see if I can get some more inside scoop to pass on to all of you guys as well. Mr. Christopher, Coach Chris, what do you have to say?
Mute button.
I guess not much.
Turn on your mic, Coach Christopher.
All right, check 1, 2. Can you hear me?
There you go. Tell us where they can find you besides this show. And thank you very
Come
much.
on, Coach. Come on.
Tell us what you were talking about off the air.
I'm sure it was brilliant. We didn't hear it.
Well, let me get back to it. First of all, let me say, Coach Shane, I am a fan. I do read the articles that you posted, brother. You're excellent. You're dead on, and excellent content. So those of you that get a chance to read some of his articles, please do. Again, this is Chris Taylor. I'm honored to be on with you guys. I do a show every Thursday called The Drive at 5 on Mancini Sports every Thursday. So we do all LA access. All sports in LA, Angels, Dodgers, Rams, Lakers, Kings, you name it. If it's a LA sport, we talk about it.
Again, what's the time and what network?
Okay, so we're on, again, with Mancini Sports with Blog Talk Radio.
www.blogtalkradio.com/Mancini Sports.
There we go.
And time?
And we're on at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, The Drive at 5 p.m. My partner, Chris Camello, and the coach, and we have Dina Ingles, Mark Mancini with us. And so we're excited about what we're doing. And again, guys, thanks for having me on and giving me the opportunity to plug my show.
Always a pleasure, Coach.
Blaine, you got anything you want to say before we go?
Yes. Not really. I think I've blown it all out tonight.
well, once again, this is the infancy of the Knucklehead Podcast Network. We'll be on Tuesday. If you ever hear us, this is where, if Mancini Sports, same address isn't there. Knucklehead Podcast. That's Knucklehead knuckpods@gmail.com. Write us. Let us know what you want to hear on Facebook or on Twitter. It's @knuckpods. That's KNUCKPODS. We've got a lot of stuff coming on. We have the mess around, what we're doing here. I have the Knucklehead Fantasy Project coming up pretty soon, as well as the Pigskin Preview, which we've been doing with Mancini for a while. We're also going to have a version on this side of the Pod Network. Look up Knucklehead Pod on YouTube, and you can find our new channel. So we appreciate you guys. Appreciate you, Coach Christopher. And there's a possibility we might have some really cool music on the outro and the intro. And I'm trying to make it work. If it doesn't work, just know it was awesome. I promise. All right, guys,